I bet that's what your future self would tell you. Hey, you got this. Be confident. You got this. Don't be scared, you know?
Ghost Cult Magazine welcomes in Shane Told of Silverstein. Shane, how are you today?
I'm fantastic. Thank you very much for having me.
Fantastic. I'm so pleased to hear that, and dare I say it's an honor. We've crossed paths before. I've seen Silverstein many times live, Warped Tour, Worcester Palladium when I lived in Massachusetts. I'm out
Yeah.
west now. Many followed your career. So many things to unpack and talk about, but especially this brand new album. I got a chance to listen to the new album,
Sweet.
Misery Made Me,
Sweet.
coming out on UNFD. I heard they get touchy if you say unified now. They want to be known as UNFD, May 6th. And,
Yep.
I don't want to piss them off. We appreciate the
They're the
support.
best. They're
Yeah.
the best. And they're the kind of people that I don't think they'd ever really get that mad.
Okay.
They do take, their artists and all the work they do very seriously. They do amazing job. We could be on a lot of labels, and we chose to be on UNFD. So they've been really terrific over the last. This is the second album we've done with them, so it's really exciting.
That's great to hear. And you could be on any other label. It's true. You've been on a few majors and a few sort of what I consider to be big indies.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, I think at this point in your career, it's interesting. I know there's a lot of conjecture about the future of labels, but I still
Sure.
think for a certain level of band like yours, a label is useful, helpful, good to have a partnership if you have someone you trust.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think we've been a band long enough, and we're also self managed, so I think we would be a prime contender to be on our own label. But we've done some releases ourselves. The Redux series we put out ourselves, and some of the live albums. But no, we still see the value too in just having a whole team, and just some outside ears and eyes. Because like you said, man, the music industry is just changing and evolving so quickly. It went from like when we started as a band in 2000 to about 2007, it was pretty much the same. And now we're seeing like that much of a change. That 7-year change is happening like every 6 months since, or maybe even faster now. So it's completely crazy. And you just have to have all hands on deck, I think, and you know that's what we've kind of always subscribed to.
I know you are seen as the face of Silverstein because you're so out there and you put yourself out there in the podcast and everything else. But do you feel like your whole band contributes to that and you
Oh
guys have
yeah. Oh no,
because
100%. It's the five of us. I mean, yeah, I'm the one that stands at the front of the stage, and I'm the one that has the microphone. Yeah, and I think I'm a pretty open book with how I speak. I'm not a super mysterious dude, that's for sure. For better or for worse, I guess. But no, I mean, it's always the five of us that make the decisions with everything we do in the band. And our drummer, Paul, is also our manager. He manages some other artists as well, and he's got his own management company. So we are like, we're a unit, and it's been the same four of us the whole time. And the fifth member has been in the band now. This is his 10th year. So we've had a pretty steady group, and we're all very very close. So it's I feel very fortunate that it's that kind of a environment.
that's really refreshing to hear, especially because of like you mentioned, a band with your longevity. All many of them don't have the core lineup still intact, and you guys have managed to make it work, which probably says a lot about you all. And you are right, the industry is perpetually evolving, and I think there's two factions. There's people who have their thumb on the pulse and they're trying to move with it and take their fans with them with it. And then there's sort of your old guard who are like, get off my lawn. I hate all of this. I don't know if you saw this, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but the news of the week to me is that Bandcamp was just bought by Epic Games, who makes Fortnite. And I love Bandcamp. They've been a huge supporter of the underground in terms of sharing platform in terms of revenue. They have been one of the best, most artist friendly platforms, and they swear they're not going to change. But as you know, whenever the hands of the corporatizing world gets involved, sometimes things change. So I'm hopeful they stay.
Definitely. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
definitely. That's news I'm familiar with. And yeah, you're right. I think Bandcamp, they say that 82% of the revenue goes directly to the artists.
correct.
82%, which is a crazy high number. I mean, when you want to compare it to something like Spotify. Um, but here's the difference, is that Spotify is huge and Bandcamp is still small. So what I'm
Right.
hoping is Bandcamp can keep the same model, keep paying the bands, 82% or more. And then with the help of Epic Gaming and some other partners, they can just continue to grow their platform and then have, all the independent artists and, even our band is on Bandcamp. We do some Bandcamp releases, including our new live album, Discovering the Waterfront, is only available on Bandcamp and vinyl. That's it. So we rely on that too. So hopefully it's just more eyeballs, more people finding out about this, more gamers maybe listening to music on Bandcamp, because I mean, as you know, there's always been issues with streamers and gamers and YouTubers finding royalty free music to use, and Bandcamp is an amazing source for that, because so many artists on that platform are like, hell yeah, you can use our music. So hopefully that will help that grow, along with the gaming, music industry. So I think it could be a really great partnership, but of course, like, there's always a little bit of cautious, optimistic ness with these kinds of acquisitions.
Totally. And, again, they have been such a disruptor in a positive way for underground bands, especially of all stripes, to get their music out there, to sell their music. And when a band doesn't have a band camp these days, I'm perplexed because it's the easiest. I even have a band camp, not just as a fan and a purchaser.
Yeah.
Like Ghost Cult has a band camp. We put our compilations out on there, and they're all to charity. So, it's trackable. You can see who's listening, who's buying. You know exactly how much money you're taking in, what you can pay out to the charities when you do it that way. So yeah, we're big fans. I hope they don't change too much. I'm sure there'll be some eventually because that's just the nature of the corporate world. But not to give my manifesto in this interview, but anywho,
All good.
yeah, super cool to talk about Misery Made Me, man. And for us, for a very ominous album cover artwork and you know, a very pointed title. It is a very, as usual, I find Silverstein music very uplifting, very mostly PMA positive, but obviously, like life is full of some darkness, especially right now as we chat. The world is crumbling in certain places of the world, and my heart goes with those people.
Yeah, man.
And the last, not to complain, but the last couple of years have been a complete psychotic break for the whole world in general.
Yeah.
Whatever your affiliation is, just been hard. So I hope you are all well and in one piece today as you can be. And this album, like I said, I think it's kind of like it's going to hit people a certain way because of, I think, the last couple of years.
Yeah, yeah, man. I think uplifting is not the first word I'd use to describe this record.
Yeah.
Both the result of it and the process of it. It was a pretty hard record to make. To back up a little bit, our last album came out in March of 2020, and that was it came out basically a week before the world ended. We were on tour, we were killing it. 20th anniversary, every show was sold out, and we had to go home in the middle of that.
Mm.
And here we are back in Canada in the cold, not supposed to be here, feeling pretty depressed. And we also just put out a record. So it wasn't like, okay, we've got all this, like we just, writing a record for us is like, it's a lot, man. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of emotion. It's a lot of time. And we weren't ready to do a record right away. So we pretty much just through 2020, and into 2021, we pretty much just sat around. And the ideas kind of came. I know Marc was doing, some co-writing over Zoom and stuff with some people and trying to get a little bit of inspiration. But it took time to really start to formulate our emotions and our feelings and and learn how to express them. And that's what ended up happening with Misery Made Me. And this record is a lot more of a complete album, I think, than A Beautiful Place to Drown. A Beautiful Place to Drown, don't get me wrong, I think it's still a really great album, but it's more like a bunch of singles on an album, a bunch of really catchy, really great songs. Whereas I think Misery Made Me is a lot more, has a lot more dynamics to it. There's a lot more screaming. There's a lot more heavy songs. There's a lot more experimentation with everything from sounds to song structure. And I think that the lyrics overall are much more dark and much more of the feel of the last couple of years we've all lived through. And but overall, like, I think the record is really, really strong, and I'm really proud of it. I think there's a lot of really cool things we did. Everything from Ultraviolet, which just came out, which is kind of an in the middle, pretty accessible song, but just is really catchy, to something like The Altar Mary, which is very heavy, also very experimental, to Die Alone, which is probably the heaviest song we've ever written, to a song like Misery, which is also, some waters we've never ventured into, with some of that finger picking and kind of ambient vibe. I think all that stuff has really just made an album that is something we've never done before, and something that we feel really strong about.
Shane is so good at this that he does my segues for me. Um, Perfect. I definitely wanted to talk about there's definitely an experimental feeling on here. I know maybe just personally, my personal aesthetic is music that is angry or sad makes me better, helps me be stronger.
Yeah,
But I
man.
think that's the purpose of it. But I did feel like a very experimental vibe, and I'm glad you singled out the Altamary. I also thought Slow Motion has some
Yeah.
things I haven't heard from you before vocally, like definitely new approaches and things, because you have at this point, after I think you have, I think 15 releases, 11 proper full lengths, live albums, EPs. You got to keep it interesting to you. Obviously, you want to make a great record, you want to make something your
Yeah.
fans will resonate with, but you also have to please you. After all this time, it's got to still be exciting.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I think yeah, there's every song on this record occupies a different space, I think, too. Even and some other songs I haven't mentioned yet, like the first track, Our Song. I mean, that's kind of like a punk rock, kind of like Euro festival anthem. That's kind of what we were going for that one. Live Like This, a song featuring Nothing Nowhere, is quite a little
Hmm.
bit different, with some sort of like a more of a dancey feel to it. And something like Don't Wait Up is another song that's almost got kind of like a vintage, like 2000s emo screamo thing going on too. So I think it's really cool. It was a lot of fun putting this record together. We actually had a lot more material than usual. Usually we kind of go into a record thinking, okay, we're going to probably put 11, 12 songs on a record, and we have, I mean, not very many more than 11 or 12 ideas. Going into this one, we had probably like double that, and we actually had to, start to pick and choose, like, okay, this idea is just not as, maybe either it's, I don't want to say it's as good, because that's kind of the wrong approach. It's more like, this idea isn't quite complete yet. Maybe we need to, like, this needs to marinate a little bit more. Maybe it'll go on the next album, kind of thing. Or this idea fills a similar space to like this other song. So maybe we don't need to have two songs that are similar tempos or similar, you know, speeds or whatever. Tempo and speed's the same thing. Like, just to fill the same kind of spot. So we ended up with just 12 very different songs that I think are all really interesting and all really strong.
Nice. I also want to say I feel like I may have said this before in some other interviews, that I feel like sequencing is a
Mm.
little bit of a lost art, because maybe
Yeah.
younger bands don't kind of get the idea. Because I know we live in such a singles dominated world, and we already talked about Bandcamp, but I do feel like sequencing is a lost art. Part of that is you have to have a really good album and a lot of good tracks. But I do feel like this album, the way it flows, is a journey. not a concept, but a journey musically. And, I listened to it a few times through before chatting. And then I went back and I do my deep dive a little bit on the, oh, you might talk to Shane this week. Let's go listen to everything yesterday. That's kind of how I do. And I do love the way that the album flows, especially I feel like the middle, again, those experimental tracks, and even It's Over, which is more like
Yeah.
a very definitive kind of sound. I feel like that middle part is so strong that it kind of takes you to the ending, almost like a movie.
Yeah. Well, I'm the I mean, a few of us are kind of psycho about sequencing in the band. I'm probably the head psycho, which is interesting because, Paul Marc, who's quite a bit younger than us, but he's also, was the main songwriter on this album. He definitely has less of an opinion about the sequencing than the rest of us do, which is kind of interesting. I think you're right. I think it's part of maybe how he grew up. Um, but I am really crazy about it. And in fact, sequencing even played a role in some of the songs themselves. For example, the song Misery that ends the record, it's actually in the key it's in because because we wanted it to be in the same key as Live Like This so that it flowed into it. Because I think the original demo that I had of that song, I had it like 1 or 2 notes higher. And we lowered it to the same as Live Like This just so that we could have that transition and kind of, go into the end of the record that way, which I think you're right. I think a lot of artists, younger artists, probably aren't thinking like that at all. And I don't know how many fans really care, or would have noticed either, but I care. That's for sure. I care. And some of our other records too, like a record like This Is How the Wind Shifts, it was very important how that record flowed together. And A Shipwreck in the Sand, we made it so that it was 14 songs, but it was put into 4 chapters that never stopped. Each of the chapters flowed together in 4, different movements. So this is not a new thing for us. And sequencing is something that I absolutely pour over, and I put an insane amount of thought into. And this record is no exception.
Nice. I know the singles are blowing up on things like Spotify because I looked up Ultraviolet to see the numbers like right now surging, which is awesome for you guys. But I do hope people spend some time with the whole album and get to
Oh
it
yeah.
in an album sense. I know, that
Oh
all
yeah.
changes. We all, people pre-save the singles the first thing it's served to you. Um, Interesting changes of late with Spotify where now you can actually go hear a whole album. Thanks, Adele. Appreciate that. And
Right.
Adele giveth and Adele taketh away between the vinyl and the Spotify stuff. But
Yeah,
you know,
that's funny.
we're
Yeah.
we're thankful for you, Adele. No hatred here. Yeah, it's a killer record all the way through, and I do really appreciate it, and it's it felt thoughtful and it felt on purpose and it felt purposeful. So I like that. And it's interesting that you mentioned Paul because you have allowed him. A lot of times, a new person comes in the band and they're not allowed to contribute
Oh yeah.
as heavily, and you have let Paul really step into his own self over the 10 years, just taking an
Sure.
increasing role.
Yeah, no, that's a good point to bring up. I mean, when he first kind of entered our space like that, um, well, should probably go back before that. I mean, he worked for us before, when he was only 19, 20 years old. He was coming on the road for us. He was selling merch. He was our guitar tech, and he was, kind of like, our little brother, helping us out with stuff. But he was always in his own projects, hell of a guitar player, hell of a songwriter. And when the departure of Neil became imminent, we were talking about, okay, who are we going to get? We've got all this short list of people from kind of all over the world, really. But because Paul Marc happened to live in our town, he was like the first one to kind of, try out or jam with us. And he came in and it was like just the perfect fit right away. And he's like, hey, yeah, like I don't want to overstep my bounds either, but I've got this like demo. Like he's like, I kind of wrote it last night, and it was the music for the song Stand Amid the Roar, first track on This Side of the Wind Shift. So, he came he came in with a bang, and it was like right away, it was like, okay, we're gonna stifle this guy. Like, we're gonna like tell him he can't write or he can't be creative. Like, why? This, like, this is we've always been a unit. Why would that change now? Anybody can write anything. Anyone, I write. I'm not a guitar player in the band, but I write plenty of songs and guitar parts, and and people can contribute lyrics or whatever they want to, right? So his songwriting skills and talent has just increased and expanded and exploded, and you know I think he's one of the best songwriters in the world, to be honest. And it's great that he's in my band. I'm really thankful for it. Not only is it great, but it takes some pressure off me too sometimes, to have to be worrying about getting a whole 12 to 15 ideas of what we're going to write about, or a whole bunch of guitar riffs and all that. So no, he's incredible, and he's been essential for the last whatever it's been, few albums of Silverstein, no question.
Awesome. As a person that yells and talks into an electric stick for a living, obviously you guys have a huge tour booked and announced to support the album. I am thankful and cautiously optimistic we're going to get all this stuff back that we've lost. Maybe not the time, but at least we can make up for it with new things. How are you feeling about getting out in front of crowds again and doing your thing? Because I feel like
Yeah,
the punk rock part of Silverstein, and that's the roots of Silverstein, is still something that it needs to get conveyed live and small. We're up at the front, no barricade, everybody grabbing
right.
everything. You know.
Yeah, I mean, eh, that's hard. I mean, I think the first and foremost thing that we've always been concerned about, even since we were a tiny little band, is just, the safety of our fans, in every single facet, right? And that continues. So, we always want to be responsible with what we're doing, and mitigate risk, and all that stuff, right? With everything. We were able to finish our tour last fall. We finished all the dates. I mean, some of them were on sale for 2 years, so we were really grateful to our fans for sticking with us and hanging on to tickets for 2 years. It's kind of crazy. But this year we got a new record, and we're trying to do as many shows as possible, and tour some places we haven't been able to in the last 2 years, like going back to Europe this summer. But it's going to be great. I mean, we're going out at the end of this month with our friends in Beartooth. Also, the Devil Wears Prada. Some of our best friends are on that tour as well. And then kind of throughout the whole year, right up to the end of the year, we're going to be trying to do as many shows and tours and festivals, like the When We Were Young festival, and the emo cruise. So we're kind of like, we're doing a whole bunch of stuff. So it's yeah.
I'm glad you mentioned When We Were Young Fest, because that was the story of the internet for a little while,
Oh yeah.
and it is like a emo or a punk kid's dream. It looks on paper phenomenal, and I am glad they kind of sounds like they shifted the format a little bit from what they originally intended, because I was like, this is too many bands for one day. I loved the idea of Warp Tour more than I liked going to the Warp Tours that I went to, and I was always the old guy at Warp Tour. I'm sure people thought I was being creepy. I was just there for the music, everybody. But I know I was like, what is this old beardy metal guy doing at the Warp Tour? No, I love the bands. I love concerts, but it did seem like a lot for one day, and I am glad now that it's going to happen over a weekend instead, because it seemed a
Well,
little much.
they are still doing it the
Yeah,
same band. Like, it's still the same show. It's
yeah.
like we're playing all 3 days. All the bands are playing all 3 days. I'm not exactly sure how they're going to work it out with logistics, like how many stages there's going to be, how long the sets are going to be, all that stuff. It's going to be probably a challenge in some respects, but if any place, city, company can handle it, it's Las Vegas.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, it's the entertainment capital of the world. But man, no, it was a pretty crazy, like, how that all shook out. We got the offer a while back. I want to say it was probably like around September, October, and literally it was just like an email that said, hi, do you want to play with My Chemical Romance in Las Vegas on this date for this much money? And we said, okay. And then we didn't know it was going to be this whole entire, festival. We didn't know any of the other bands except for My Chemical Romance. And so it just kind of got announced. Like they didn't run anything by the bands, probably because they didn't want there to be the like, well, why are we below this band, or why is our name smaller than this band? Because that's inevitably what happens, especially when you've got like 65 bands on an ad mat. So it was all pretty crazy, and a lot of I had to answer a lot of people's DMs saying like, is this a scam? It's like, no, it's not a scam, come on.
Right.
It's but no, it's gonna be insanely fun, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of the bands we used to play with, 15
Yeah.
years ago, that some of which I haven't seen. It'll be really cool to catch up with some of those people, and yeah, in Las Vegas. Las Vegas is like my second home. My sister lives there. I spend like every holiday there and everything, so it's gonna be a lot of fun.
Nice. It's going to be like a Warped Tour 2008 reunion, family reunion. I will
Yeah,
say two things that are interesting. That one, if anybody can pull it off, it's those guys, because the people running when we were young are the Chain Reaction people. So they do Chain Fest, and they
yeah,
they they know what they're doing. It's not going to be a disaster. People were like throwing out Fire Fest, totally unnecessary. Don't overthink this thing and get too
no,
scared.
no,
It's
no,
going to be safe. It might be some overlapping bands. You might have some tough choices to make
always
as
is.
a fan. It's always going to be the case. And the other thing is, I think North American fans, we don't understand this vibe, but like Europe has, England has Slam Dunk Fest, same bands, different cities, next day, next week. The old Soundwave festivals in Australia were the exact same festival in all the major Australian
Yeah.
cities. So we're just spoiled rotten in America, where we're just used to this very linear kind of thing in our little squirrel brains. Yeah, it's going to be fun, and I just hope everybody's safe and hydrates and sunblocks up, because it's dry out there. Vegas is dry and hot.
Yep.
But yeah, as we wind this down, man, I wanted to just quickly touch on lead singer syndrome, because I'm fascinated by the podcast stuff. You've done such a great job. It's almost 400 episodes. I don't know if you've already recorded 400 episodes, but
Oh, no, no,
what's
no.
released is almost 400.
304. Today
Oh,
was
okay.
number 304, but of course there's been lots of bonus episodes and extra stuff
Yeah,
too.
it feels like a
No,
lot. It
yeah,
feels
no,
like you've done.
it's yeah, it's a lot, and well, thank you for the kind words. Yeah, it's something that I've been doing now for 6 years. Actually more than that, and yeah, it's just been a lot of fun. Being able to talk to other lead singers and kind of having a different perspective. A lot of times when I'm on the horn with another lead singer, they kind of know they can't give me a bullshit stock answer because I've been doing it for 22 years.
Mm.
So it's been a lot of fun. I met a lot of friends. I think we really shared some very informative and interesting stories. And yeah, man, it's just been really, really great and something that I'm really proud of.
As you should be. I think, as I mentioned offline, I don't look at a lot of other people's stuff in a way to try to just preserve my purity and my stuff. But at the same time, I know that you have so many friends in the business. You talk to people I may never get a chance to. So I do listen to some of your stuff. And I love I think probably part and parcel of just the friendships you built. I think people are very open to telling you stuff they might not tell a journalist, because they have that barrier is reduced with you. But you also do a really excellent job of maintaining that, like, this is my podcast and not a hangout on the bus, even though it can feel like that in the conversation. So I think
Sure.
you do a
Yeah.
really good job. I think people, aspiring journalists, should actually check out your pod, because I think what you do, the way you maintain that, you maintain that integrity. It's important, because people do take this stuff as news. When people divulge plans or personal stuff to you, it does become a news story.
Oh, there's no question. Yeah, and thank you for saying all that. I mean, I do take it very seriously. I do my homework. I do my research. Every single guest I talk to, no matter how big or small, I put in quite a bit of time to make sure I'm very well versed with all the things that they have done and are doing, and are going to do. And kind of get a feel for, okay, what's the narrative going to be like? Okay, I've got pick a singer. I've got Bert from the Used coming on. Okay, like what's the narrative? Like what am I trying to get at here? What is the point of this all of this, right? Other than just promoting a new record, which of course we're going to talk about that stuff, but does that always make great, great compelling interview material? Not really, right? So that's kind of my direction and what I've always done. And it's funny you asked about, oh, have you recorded 400? It's like actually like I just put up 304 and I haven't recorded 305 yet because I like to keep it really current and
Mhm.
really, like, okay, I'm recording this and this was like 2 days ago. I talked to this person and now it's up. Because the world changes so fast, the news changes so fast. Like I remember, back in whatever it was, 2016, when there was like a year when people were still like, well, I hope Trump doesn't get elected. And it's like, he did 6 months ago. And you recorded this shit so long ago that now your conversations are irrelevant. So that's another important thing to me is just try to like be really, really current and, and put up the interviews as fast as possible.
Nice work. I really appreciate that. It's a great answer. What is a piece of advice you would go back and give yourself
Hmm.
if you could at the start of your career? Get in a time machine and find younger Shane without destroying the fabric of reality and be like, hey, buddy, this is going to happen. Here's some advice.
Oh man, I think my first initial answer is I wouldn't tell myself a damn thing because I feel like the ebbs and flows and the ups and downs and some of the failures that I've been met with in my career have ultimately been more important than the successes. And I don't know if people understand, but I'll explain. You know, I think sometimes a failure or a misstep can teach you a lot more than just like, oh, I did it right and it's great. And now what's the next thing going to be? Because even if I went back and I did something right that I did wrong, well, who's to say that that right step wouldn't have led to a worse wrong step, you know, somewhere along the way. So I've managed to navigate through it well enough and learned as I've went along. And here I am. And one thing I think about all the time is how our band, we never had like that explosion song, that was like all over the charts, like this massive hit. And I won't name names, but there's been bands in, our scene that I'm friends with that had that. They had that like huge video on MTV and that radio song and all this stuff. And, you know, it it was probably the kiss of death, for their longevity and for their fan base. So in some ways, as much as I look back at a song like My Heroine and like at the time I'm like, well, why isn't this song huge? And now it's a classic song and like, it's our most popular song, but like at the time, well, why wasn't it? But if it was, maybe it wouldn't have been what it has become. So these are the kinds of things that I do think about from time to time, which is why my answer is not a goddamn thing. That's what I would change.
Right on. That's refreshing. Usually somebody
Or
has some
advice.
kind of like word to the wise,
Well,
dumbass, something.
I'll tell you this though. Sorry to interrupt you. I will say
No, go
this
ahead.
though. I think the only thing that I would probably tell myself, and I would think a lot of people should be thinking about is you should believe in yourself more. You should be confident. And you should take your abilities and your talents seriously. Obviously we're all our own worst critics for what we're able to do, but I think that was probably my worst flaw early on was like I just never gave myself enough credit, and I was always a little scared of of things that I shouldn't have been scared of. And so yeah, if you're listening to this, that's the confidence. You have it, you should have it, and I bet that's what your future self would tell you. Hey, you got this. Be confident. You got this. Don't be scared.
Don't be scared. Words to live by. Shane Told of Silverstein and the Lead Singer Syndrome podcast. Misery Made Me is coming out on UNFD in May. Shane, it has been a pleasure talking to you, man. Thank you so much for sharing
Yeah.
your story and hanging out with Ghost Gold. I deeply appreciate you.
Yes, May 6th is the date. Be sure to pre-save it on Spotify. Pick up a vinyl pre-order if you can. Whatever you can do help us spread the word. There's plenty of things you can do for free that help. People think like, well, why would I pre-save it? I'll just listen to it when it comes out. Well, it matters. It matters for getting everybody on board and rallying the troops. So anything that anybody can do to help spread the word, I really appreciate. We really appreciate.
Word. Thank you so much, man. Have a great day and take care and be safe out
Thank,
there on the road.
thank you, Keith. All the best, man.